I walked into that courtroom 9 months pregnant, about to lose everything. My billionaire husband wanted a divorce. His mother had already picked out my replacement. They had an army of lawyers and a prenup that left me with nothing. But what they didn't know, I'd been recording everything for 9 months. Every cruel word, every conspiracy, every crime. And I was about to play it all in front of a judge. This is the story of how a nobody from Boston took down an $800 million empire with nothing but a phone and the truth. Stay until the end, because the courtroom confession, you won't believe what she admitted. I was 9 months pregnant when I walked into that courtroom. My husband wanted a divorce. His mother wanted me destroyed. His mistress wanted my life. They had 5 lawyers, unlimited money, and a prenup that said I got nothing. I had a recording device, the truth, and 9 months of evidence they didn't know I'd collected. This is the story of how I took down a billionaire family. But before I tell you how I won, I need to tell you how they almost broke me. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and 1 year ago, I thought I was living a romance novel. I was managing a small art gallery in Boston's North End. Nothing fancy, local artists, affordable pieces, the kind of place where people actually bought art instead of just looking at it. I love that job. I love my tiny apartment above the gallery with its crooked floors and the window that looked out onto the Italian bakery next door. Then Nathan Blackwell walked in during our spring charity exhibition. He wasn't just handsome. Handsome guys came into the gallery all the time. Nathan was magnetic, 6'2", dark hair with just enough gray at the temples to look distinguished, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. But what caught me off guard was how he looked at me. Not through me like most wealthy people did, actually at me, like I mattered. "Tell me about this piece," that he said, pointing to a watercolor of Boston Harbor. I started my usual sales pitch, but he stopped me. "No, I mean, really tell me. What do you see when you look at it?" We talked for 2 hours. He bought 3 paintings, not the expensive ones, the ones I'd told him I genuinely loved. Before he left, he asked for my number. "I never do this," I told him. "Neither do I," he said. And I believed him. The next 3 months were a blur. Dinners at restaurants I couldn't pronounce. Weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard. Flowers delivered to the gallery every single Monday. Not roses, but wildflowers. Because I'd mentioned once that roses felt too formal. Nathan was attentive in ways I'd never experienced. He remembered everything. How I took my coffee, that I was allergic to shellfish, that my father's birthday was coming up. He asked about my day and actually listened to the answers. His friends were intimidating, hedge fund managers, tech entrepreneurs, people who summered as a verb. But Nathan always kept his hand on the small of my back, anchoring me. "You're smarter than all of them," he'd whisper. "You just don't know it yet." I call-signed my dad 3 weeks in, crying happy tears. "Papa, I think I found him. I think I found the one." My father was quiet for a long moment. "Sarah, honey, things that move this fast usually crash just as hard." "Not this time," I said. "This time is different." I should have listened. Month 3, Nathan took me to the Tiffany's flagship store in New York. Private appointment, champagne, the whole fairy tale. The ring was emerald cut, 3 carats, platinum band. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. "Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell," and he sat down on one knee in a room that probably cost more per hour than I made in a month. "You walked into my life and made me remember what genuine feels like. Marry me." I said yes before he finished the sentence. That night in the hotel room, I felt dizzy. Not from champagne. I'd barely touched it. Just dizzy and nauseous. "You okay?" Nathan asked. "Just overwhelmed," I said. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I was counting days. 1 week before the wedding, I took the test. Pregnant, 3 weeks along. I sat on the bathroom floor of my apartment for 20 minutes, just staring at the 2 pink lines. We'd been careful, mostly careful. There was that one weekend in the Hamptons when, I called Nathan immediately. "Can you come over? I need to tell you something." He arrived in 15 minutes, still in his work suit. I handed him the test without saying a word. His face went through about 6 emotions in 3 seconds. Then he broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. "Are you serious? Sarah, this is incredible. This is the best news I've ever gotten." He picked me up and spun me around. We're having a baby. We're getting married and having a baby. Sarah, you've made me the happiest man alive. I laughed, relieved. You're not upset? We weren't exactly planning. Plans change. This is better than any plan. Wait until I tell my mother. That was the first time I saw the smile falter on his face when he mentioned her. Is she going to be upset? No, Nathan said, but his voice was different. Careful. No, she'll be happy for us. He was lying. We both knew it. The wedding was 3 weeks later. Nathan wanted to marry before I started showing. It was extravagant, ridiculously extravagant. 400 guests at the Plaza Hotel in New York, ice sculptures, a 12-piece orchestra, flowers that cost more than my dad's annual pension. I felt like a doll being dressed up and paraded around. But the worst part was Victoria. I'd only met Nathan's mother twice before the wedding. Both times she'd been perfectly polite, perfectly cold. So you're the gallery girl, she'd said at our first meeting, looking at me like I was a painting she might purchase if the price dropped. Sarah, Nathan had corrected. Her name is Sarah. Of course, Sarah. Victoria's smile never reached her eyes. At the wedding, she wore white, not ivory, not cream, white, the same shade as my dress. When I mentioned it to Nathan, he kissed my forehead. That's just her style. Don't worry about it. But I saw the looks from the society women, the whispers. Victoria knew exactly what she was doing. During the ceremony, when the photographer wanted family photos, Victoria disappeared, just vanished for 20 minutes. We had to take the photos without her. She reappeared for the reception, all smiles. Sorry, darling. Powder room emergency. I caught her watching me throughout the night, not in a warm, welcoming way, like a scientist studying a specimen. At one point, I saw her talking to a stunning blonde woman I didn't recognize. The woman was young, maybe my age, wearing a silver dress that looked spray-painted on. They were laughing together, heads close. Who's that? I asked Nathan. He barely glanced over. Amber something, friend of my mother's. Just wondering. The woman, Amber, looked at me once across the ballroom, made direct eye contact, smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy. It was perfect, until the flight home, when Nathan dropped the bomb. So my mother suggested we stay at the estate for a while, just until we find the right place for us. Stay at the estate? You mean live with your mother? It's temporary. The place is 15,000 square feet, Sarah. We'll barely see her. Nathan, we're about to have a baby. We need our own space. And we'll get it, but real estate in Greenwich takes time. Just a few months. Famous last words. The Blackwell estate was beautiful in the way mausoleums are beautiful. All marble and antiques in silence. Victoria gave us the East Wing. Your own private space, she said. But the staff had keys. Victoria had keys. There was no privacy. The torture started small. Day 3. I woke up hungry, pregnancy cravings, and went downstairs at 6 in the morning. The staff was already there preparing breakfast. Could I have some eggs? I asked the cook, a stern woman named Margaret. She looked past me to Victoria, who'd appeared in the doorway like a ghost. Margaret prepares breakfast at 8, Victoria said coolly. We keep a schedule in this house. I'm just really hungry. The baby will be fine for 2 hours. Try some discipline, dear. It's good practice for motherhood. Margaret never looked at me, just kept chopping vegetables. I went back upstairs, stomach growling, week 2. I tried to make the bedroom feel like ours, bought some throw pillows, a cozy blanket, photos of me and Nathan. Came back from a doctor's appointment to find them all gone. The room looked exactly like it had the day we'd moved in. Where's my stuff? I asked the housekeeping staff. Mrs. Blackwell had us remove the clutter, a young girl said, not meeting my eyes. She said it didn't fit the aesthetic. I found Victoria in her study. You threw away my things? I had them stored. This is an historic home, Sarah, not a college dorm room. We have standards. Nathan, tell her I started when he got home. Sarah, just pick your battles, he sighed. It's some pillows. Is it really worth a fight? Week 3, Victoria hosted a dinner party. 20 society women, all in their 50s and 60s, dripping in diamonds. Sarah will be joining us, Victoria announced. She's part of the family now. I wore my nicest dress, the one I'd worn to a gallery gala. Simple, elegant, black. Victoria looked me up and down. How understated. The dinner was torture. The women talked about people I didn't know, places I'd never been, charities I couldn't afford to donate to. I tried to follow along, but I was always 3 references behind. Sarah managed an art gallery, Victoria told them, in a tone that made art galleries sound like gas station. How quaint, one woman said. Did you sell to tourists? We sold to locals mostly. Artists from the Boston area. Oh, how sweet. A visit. She turned back to the others. As I was saying, generational wealth really understands the value of these properties. I excused myself to the bathroom and cried silently for 5 minutes. Week 4. I was 12 weeks pregnant, starting to show just a little. Victoria commented on my body every single day. You're carrying wide, probably a girl. Should you be eating that much cheese? You don't want to gain too much weight. Nathan's father liked women who maintained their figures, even during pregnancy. One morning I woke up to find Victoria going through the drawers in our bedroom. What are you doing? Looking for the necklace Nathan's grandmother left me. I thought perhaps you'd borrowed it. I've never touched your necklace. I didn't even know it existed. It's just that it went missing after you arrived. The implication hung in the air like poison. Are you accusing me of stealing? I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm simply looking. She smiled that cold smile. Don't be so defensive, dear. Defensiveness suggests guilt. She left. The necklace turned up 2 days later in her own jewelry box. She never apologized. Week 12, Thursday afternoon. I was in the garden trying to get some air when a wave of dizziness hit me, then pain, sharp, cramping pain low in my abdomen. I called out, but no one came. The staff was inside. I was alone. The pain got worse. I felt wetness, looked down. Blood. I screamed. The ambulance came. They rushed me to Mount Sinai. I was alone. Nathan was in a meeting, phone off. The emergency room doctor was kind but serious. You're spotting. Blood pressure is dangerously elevated. Have you been under unusual stress? Yes. Living with my mother-in-law has been. I'm going to be blunt with you, Mrs. Blackwell. Your body is in distress. The baby is okay right now, but if your stress levels don't decrease, we could be looking at a very different outcome. They did an ultrasound. The baby's heartbeat filled the room, fast, strong, perfect. I sobbed with relief. Nathan finally arrived 2 hours later. He smelled like perfume, not my perfume. Jesus, Sarah, you scared me. What happened? I collapsed. The stress? What stress? You're living in a mansion. You don't have to work. What could possibly be stressful? I stared at him. Your mother, Nathan, your mother is what's stressful. Oh, come on, she's trying. You're both just adjusting. Victoria swept in an hour later, impeccably dressed, completely composed. Is the baby all right? Not are you all right? Yes, but I need to reduce stress. Well, perhaps if you were less emotional about everything, drama for attention, the doctor probably thinks. I was too tired to fight. While I was dozing, I heard Victoria on the phone in the hallway. I'd been given something for the pain, so I was groggy, but I heard it. If nature takes care of it, so much the better. Then we can start fresh. Yes, I know the will says legitimate heir, but there are ways around. No, Nathan is already bored with her. Give it time. I opened my eyes. Victoria was standing in the doorway, phone to her ear, looking directly at me. She knew I'd heard. She smiled, ended the call, and walked away. That night, alone in the hospital room, I realized the truth. Victoria wanted me to lose the baby. The stress, the constant criticism, the isolation. It wasn't just cruelty. It was strategy, and Nathan either didn't see it or didn't care. I put my hand on my stomach and made a promise. I would protect this baby, no matter what it took. But first, I needed to know what I was really dealing with. Nathan visited me in the hospital the next morning with flowers and tears in his eyes. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I should have been paying attention. This is my fault. It's not your fault. It's the situation. Nathan, I can't live with your mother anymore. It's killing me. It's killing our baby. He took my hand. You're right. You're absolutely right. We're moving out. Really? Really, I've already called a realtor. We're going to look at places this week. I promise, Sarah, I'm going to fix this. The next week felt like a reset. Nathan was attentive again. Present. He held my hand during the second ultrasound. He made me breakfast. He even stood up to Victoria once when she criticized my outfit. Mom, that's enough. Sarah looks beautiful. Victoria's eyes went cold, but she backed down. We toured a gorgeous brownstone in Brooklyn. 4 bedrooms, a backyard close to the park. Perfect for raising a family. This is it, Nathan said, squeezing my hand. This is our home. I'll call the realtor tomorrow and put in an offer. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. I woke up excited. Today we'd make an offer on the brownstone. Today, we'd start our real life. I called the realtor to confirm our appointment. Mrs. Blackwell, I'm confused. Your husband called this morning and canceled. He said you'd changed your mind. The world tilted. We didn't change our minds. He was very clear. He said the timing wasn't right after all. I'm sorry for the confusion. I hung up and sat there, phone in my trembling hand. Nathan was in back-to-back meetings all day. Couldn't be reached. When I went downstairs, Victoria was in the dining room reading the paper over coffee. Good morning, dear. Nathan told me you decided to stay after all. How wise. A new mother needs support, not isolation. We didn't decide anything. Didn't you? Strange. Nathan was quite clear with me this morning. He said you'd realized how foolish it would be to leave. I felt the trap closing. Now, Victoria continued, not looking up from her paper, I've taken the liberty of hiring a decorator for the nursery. I think a gender-neutral yellow would be appropriate. We'll discuss details this afternoon. I walked back upstairs on numb legs. In our bedroom, I found a note from Nathan. Had to leave early. We'll talk tonight. Trust me. But I didn't trust him. Not anymore. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd do. I started documenting everything. Nathan started having business dinners every Thursday night. Client meeting, and he'd say, kissing my forehead, "Don't wait up." He'd come home after midnight, showered, smelling like hotel soap. The first Thursday, I believed him. The second Thursday, I noticed the pattern. The third Thursday, I decided to follow him. I felt insane doing it, like some paranoid wife from a bad TV movie, but my instincts were screaming. I waited until he left, then got in my car and followed at a distance. He didn't go to his office. He drove into Manhattan, to the Upper East Side, and parked in front of a luxury high-rise on 57th Street. I watched from down the block as he went inside, used a key card, didn't ring any buzzers. 30 minutes later, a woman arrived. She was stunning, tall, blonde, perfectly styled, wearing a silver dress that probably cost more than my car. Designer bag, heels that could kill. I recognized her immediately, the woman from the wedding. Amber. She used her own key card to enter. I sat in that car for 4 hours. My back ached. The baby kicked. I had to pee desperately. They came out together at 11 at night. Nathan's tie was loosened. Her hair was different, messier. They were laughing. At the entrance, under the light, they kissed. Not a friendly peck, a real kiss. His hand on her waist, her fingers in his hair. I watched my husband kiss another woman, and something inside me died. But something else was born. Something cold and calculating. Instead of confronting him, I took photos. Lots of photos. Then I drove home, parked, and was in bed pretending to be asleep when he arrived an hour later. The next morning, I hired a private investigator. His name was Thomas McKay, a former cop, highly recommended. I need everything, I told him. Where they meet, how often, how long this has been going on. Everything. And if your husband finds out, he won't, because I'm going to keep living my life exactly like normal. For the next 2 weeks, I played the perfect wife, smiled at breakfast, asked about his day, made love to him when he wanted to, and every night after he fell asleep, I reviewed Thomas's reports. Subject Jonathan Blackwell has been visiting the 57th Street property every Thursday evening for the past 18 months. Property owned by Victoria Blackwell. Subject Amber Sinclair also visits every Thursday. They arrive separately, leave together. Pattern suggests regular scheduled meetings. 18 months. He'd been seeing her for 18 months. 6 months before he even met me. Subject Amber Sinclair, 29 years old, professional model, socialite, known to attend Blackwell family charity events, photographed at subject's wedding to client, no known employment beyond modeling. Bank records show monthly deposits of $15,000 from an LLC registered to Victoria Blackwell. Victoria was paying her $15,000 a month for 18 months. That was $270,000. I created a fake Instagram account and went through Amber's feed. And there she was, in the background of Blackwell charity events, standing near Nathan at a gala, sitting 2 tables away at a fundraiser. One photo from 20 months ago, Amber at a Blackwell Properties event, champagne in hand, caption reading, "Amazing night with the Blackwell family." Victoria had commented, "Lovely seeing you, darling." I scrolled back further, found a photo from 3 years ago, Amber and Victoria having lunch. Caption reading, "Mentorship lunch with the amazing Victoria Blackwell. Thank you for believing in me." Victoria had been cultivating this girl for 3 years. This wasn't an affair. This was an arrangement. But why? Why go to such elaborate lengths? That's when I remembered something from the hospital. Victoria on the phone. The will says legitimate heir. There are ways around it. There was something about Nathan's father's will, something that involved a legitimate heir, something that made my pregnancy either valuable or threatening. I needed to see that will. Victoria went to her weekly spa appointment every Wednesday at 2 in the afternoon. She'd be gone for 3 hours. I waited until the house was quiet, then went to her private study. The door was locked, but I'd stolen a key from the housekeeper's office days earlier. Inside, the room was exactly what you'd expect. Dark wood, leather furniture, walls lined with legal books. Everything perfectly organized. I went straight to the filing cabinet. Locked, but I'd come prepared. I'd watched Victoria enter the combination on her safe once through a crack in the door. 0417, April 17th, her late husband's birthday. The safe clicked open. Last will and testament of Richard Thomas Blackwell. I photographed every page, hands shaking. The relevant section read, "The Blackwell estate, including all properties, investments, and assets totaling approximately $800 million, shall be held in trust managed by my wife, Victoria Ann Blackwell, until such time as my son, Jonathan Richard Blackwell, marries and produces a legitimate heir. Upon the birth of a legitimate heir, control of 60% of the estate shall transfer to Jonathan Richard Blackwell. Victoria Ann Blackwell shall retain control of 40%. However, if Jonathan Richard Blackwell divorces his wife within 3 years of marriage, said wife shall be entitled to no less than 40% of the estate value, with full custody rights of any children produced during the marriage. If Jonathan remarries within 5 years of divorce, the above restrictions reset." I read it 3 times before it sank in. Victoria controlled $800 million, but only until Nathan had a baby. Once the baby was born, Nathan would take control of 60% and Victoria would drop to 40%. But if Nathan divorced me before 3 years, I'd get 40% and Nathan would only have 20%. Unless Nathan divorced me, waited out any claims, and remarried someone Victoria controlled. Then Victoria could maintain her power through a puppet daughter-in-law. Behind the will was another document, agreement of intent to marry, between Victoria Ann Blackwell, Party A, and Amber Rose Sinclair. Party B date, March 15th, 2024. I checked my phone. My wedding date was May 22nd, 2024. This contract was signed 2 months before I married Nathan. Party B agrees to enter into marriage with Jonathan Richard Blackwell following the dissolution of his marriage to Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, pending the following conditions. 1. Party A will provide Party B with a monthly stipend of $15,000 for the duration of pre-marriage preparation. 2. Party B will maintain a relationship with Jonathan Richard Blackwell during his marriage to Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell to facilitate marital discord and expedite divorce proceedings. 3. Upon marriage to Jonathan Richard Blackwell, Party B will defer all major estate decisions to Party A for a period of no less than 15 years. 4. Any children produced by the marriage of Party B and Jonathan Richard Blackwell shall be raised according to specifications set forth by Party A. It was signed. Victoria's signature, Amber's signature, notarized. They'd planned to replace me before I even existed in Nathan's life. I kept digging, found more. Bank statements showing monthly $15,000 transfers to Amber, 18 months worth. Hotel receipts, the Manhattan penthouse charged to Victoria's corporate card, a handwritten planner with operation replacement at the top. A timeline, month 1 through 6, establish trust. Month 7 through 12, introduce stress factors. Month 13 through 18, facilitate affair. Month 19 through 24, orchestrate divorce. Printed emails between Victoria and Amber discussing progress. A medical consultation document titled Stress-Induced Pregnancy Complications, Methods and Outcomes. This last one made me physically ill. It was research. Victoria had researched how to make me miscarry without it being traceable. At the bottom of the safe was a manila envelope. Inside, photos of 5 other women. Young, beautiful, different backgrounds. Each photo had a red X marked across it. On the back of each photo, notes in Victoria's handwriting. Jennifer, too stubborn, divorced month 11. Catherine, too connected, bought out month 8. Rebecca, too smart, threatened legal action, paid off month 14. Diana, too fragile. Nervous breakdown, month 6. Institutionalized. Melissa, too ambitious, discovered operation. Disappeared month 9. Disappeared. I'd found evidence of 5 previous failed daughters-in-law. Women Victoria had systematically destroyed. I was number 6. I had 2 options. Run. Take these photos, file for divorce, and fight. Or stay. Let Victoria think she was winning while I built an even stronger case. I thought about those 5 women, the ones who ran early, the one who disappeared. I looked at my growing belly. 16 weeks now. The baby was the size of an avocado. I made my choice. I photographed everything. Every document, every page, every note, every photo. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, locked the safe, and left the study. Downstairs, Victoria was in the sitting room, having returned early from her spa appointment. "Sarah, what were you doing upstairs?" My heart stopped, but my face stayed calm. "Lying down. The baby's making me tired." She studied me for a long moment. You should rest more. Stress isn't good for the baby." "No," I agreed, meeting her eyes. "It isn't." Week 18. I was starting to show properly now, unmistakably pregnant. Victoria announced she was hosting an intimate tea for her society friends. "You'll join us, of course. It's important that they get to know you." I knew this wasn't a kindness, but I couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. The tea was held in the garden on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. 8 society women, all in their 50s and 60s, all dripping in diamonds and judgment. And one surprise guest, Amber Sinclair. "Girls, you know Amber," Victoria said warmly. "Such a dear family friend." Amber was stunning in a powder blue dress, her hair perfect, her smile venomous. "Congratulations on the baby," she said to me, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Thank you," I replied, keeping my voice steady. Victoria had arranged the seating so that I was at one end of the table, alone, while the other women clustered at the opposite end with Victoria and Amber. For the first 30 minutes, they simply ignored me, talked over me, around me, like I wasn't there. They discussed people I didn't know. "Did you hear about Margaret's daughter? Married a venture capitalist. They bought that estate in the Hamptons." "The Whitmore estate? I heard it went for $45 million. A steal, really. Location is everything." I tried to contribute once. "That sounds beautiful. I love the Hamptons." "Have you spent much time there?" one woman asked, her tone making it clear she knew the answer. "Once. Nathan took me." "Oh, how sweet. A visit." She turned back to the others. "As I was saying, generational wealth really understands the value of these properties." Then Victoria did something that made my blood boil. "Sarah, dear, would you mind pouring the tea? I'm feeling a bit tired." All conversation stopped. I was 7 months pregnant. Victoria wanted me to serve her friends. Like staff. Of course, I said, standing slowly. I poured tea for each woman, my back aching, while they continued their conversation as if I were invisible. When I got to Amber, she smiled up at me. Thank you so much. You're so good at this. Very domestic. I was returning the teapot to the cart when Amber stood suddenly to stretch her legs. Her chair pushed back directly into me. I stumbled. The teapot slipped. Hot tea splashed across my pregnant belly. I gasped in pain, clutching my stomach. Oh my God, Amber shrieked. I'm so sorry. You're just so big. I didn't see you there. The garden erupted in concerned murmurs, but not one person helped me. They just watched. Victoria dabbed at my dress with a napkin, almost clinically. Amber, dear, don't feel bad. Sarah should have been more careful. At her size, spatial awareness is important. The other women actually laughed. Nervous, polite laughter. But laughter. I felt wetness that wasn't tea. Looked down. Red spotting on my dress. I need to. I couldn't finish the sentence. I ran inside, straight to the bathroom, heart pounding. There wasn't much blood, but enough to terrify me. I called Dr. Klein from the bathroom floor. The baby's probably fine, she said calmly. But you need to come in. Can you get to the hospital? Yes, I'll drive myself. Sarah, you need to seriously consider your living situation. This is the second stress-related incident. Your body can't keep taking this. When I came out of the bathroom, Victoria was standing in the hallway. Is the baby all right? Not are you all right. Again, always the baby. I need to go to the hospital. I'll have William drive you. I can drive myself. Don't be ridiculous. You're in no condition. At the hospital, they confirmed the baby was fine. But Mrs. Blackwell, you're showing signs of chronic stress. Your blood pressure is elevated. You're at risk for preeclampsia. When I returned to the estate, the tea party was over. I went upstairs to find Amber sitting in the bedroom. My bedroom, in the chair by the window, reading a book. What are you doing in here? She looked up, smiled. Victoria wanted me to check on you, make sure you were okay. I'm fine, you can leave. You know, Amber said, standing slowly, this must be so hard for you. Being pregnant, living here, knowing that Nathan and I have history. History? We've known each other for 3 years. Did he tell you that? We met at one of Victoria's events, before you existed in his life. She walked past me, paused at the door. After the divorce, this will all be mine anyway. The bedroom, the estate, Nathan. I'm just trying to be patient. She smiled. But patience has limits. I stood there frozen as she walked away. I went back downstairs. The garden was empty except for Victoria, sitting alone with her tea. I stood in the doorway watching her. She knew I was there. Didn't turn around. After the divorce, this will all be yours anyway. Victoria's voice carried across the garden. She was talking to someone on the phone. No, the tea party went perfectly. Amber played her part beautifully. Yes, the girl knows her place now. Give it another few months. After the baby is born, we'll move quickly. The prenup is airtight. She gets nothing. Not the baby, not a penny. Then Nathan and Amber can marry properly, and we can finally have the family we should have had from the start. She ended the call, turned around, looked directly at me. She knew I'd heard. She wanted me to hear. Is there something you need, Sarah? I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Victoria stood, walked toward me, stopped inches from my face. Some women are wives, others are just placeholders. You've known which one you were from the beginning. You just didn't want to admit it. She walked past me into the house. I stood in that garden, 7 months pregnant, and realized this wasn't just cruelty. This was orchestrated psychological warfare. And I was losing. I was at my lowest point. Isolated, pregnant, being systematically destroyed. Then help came from an unexpected source. Jessica Torres, Victoria's executive assistant, approached me in the hallway late one night. Mrs. Sarah, I need to talk to you, not here. We met at a coffee shop 3 miles from the estate. Jessica was nervous, constantly looking over her shoulder. I've worked for Mrs. Blackwell for 8 years, she said. I've seen her do this before. You're not the first. The photo's in her safe. The 5 other women. Jessica nodded. Dana, the 4th one, had a nervous breakdown. Victoria had her involuntarily committed. Melissa, the last one, threatened to go to the press. She disappeared. Disappeared? No one knows where she is. She was here one day, gone the next. Victoria paid someone. I don't know who, I don't know how much, but Melissa vanished. Why are you telling me this? Because you're different. You're not breaking. You're observing. I've been watching you, watching her. You're planning something, aren't you? I didn't answer. Jessica slid a USB drive across the table. This is everything. Copies of every document in that safe. Emails between Victoria and Amber going back 3 years. Bank records, the medical consultation document, photos of the other women, and security footage. Security footage? From Victoria's study, I installed a camera 6 months ago. I've recorded every meeting she's had, every phone call, including the one where she discussed having you handled if you became a problem. My heart was racing. Why are you doing this? Because I'm the 7th person who's tried to bring Victoria Blackwell down. And I've learned that the only way to beat her is with evidence so overwhelming, she can't spin it. You need to destroy her completely or she'll destroy you. And I'm tired of watching her win. That night, I reviewed everything on the USB drive. It was damning, completely damning. I called Maggie Harper, the divorce attorney I'd consulted weeks earlier. I have everything, documents, recordings, bank records, testimony from her assistant. I can destroy her. Then let's do it, Maggie said. File for divorce. We'll use this in court. She'll be ruined. No, not yet. What do you mean, not yet? You have everything you need. If I file now, she'll know Jessica helped me. She'll know I broke into her safe. She'll find a way to make the evidence inadmissible. I need to get this evidence legally. Or I need her to confess on record. How are you going to do that? I'm going to make her think she's won. And then I'm going to make her so confident that she tells me everything herself. On tape. I spent the next week preparing. I bought a professional-grade recording device, the kind that's completely undetectable. In New York, you only need one-party consent to record a conversation. I'd be that one party. I studied Victoria's patterns, her routines, her triggers. I needed to make her angry enough to brag, but calm enough to be detailed. I practiced my broken victim act in the mirror, learned how to make my voice shake, how to make my eyes well up with tears on command. I was going to give Victoria exactly what she wanted, my surrender. And then I was going to record her victory speech. I told Nathan I needed to talk, sat him down in our bedroom. I can't do this anymore. He looked relieved. You're finally ready to divorce her? No, I'm ready to leave you. His face went white. What? I know about Amber. I know about the affair. I know she was at our wedding. I know your mother has been paying her for 18 months. Sarah, I can explain. I don't want explanations. I want out. I want a divorce. I want to take my baby and disappear. You can't just take my child. Watch me. I left the room, left him sitting there panicking. Within an hour, Victoria knocked on my door. We need to talk. We met in Victoria's study, just the two of us. I was wearing the recording device under my dress. Nathan tells me you want a divorce. Yes. You do understand you'll get nothing? The prenup is very clear. I don't care about money. Everyone cares about money. Victoria studied me. You're not stupid enough to think you'll get custody, are you? My son is a billionaire. You're a gallery manager with no resources. The courts will give him the child. Maybe, but I'll fight. And lose, and spend years in legal battles, and still lose. Victoria leaned back in her chair. Or you could be smart. Smart? Sign the papers. Walk away quietly. I'll give you $2 million. Tax-free. Cash. You can start over anywhere in the world. Your child will grow up with every advantage. You'll be free. Free to watch you raise my baby. Someone has to. You're clearly not up to the task. The venom in her voice was perfect. I needed her angry. Why do you hate me so much? Victoria laughed. Hate you? Sarah, I don't hate you. You're just in the way. In the way of what? And then she told me everything. Do you know what my husband's will said? Of course you don't. You don't know anything. Richard specified that Nathan needed to marry and produce an heir before he could control the estate. But he also protected any wife Nathan chose with a rather generous divorce clause. 40% of everything if the marriage ended within 3 years. So you needed Nathan to marry someone you could remove. Someone suitable for removal, yes. Someone desperate enough to marry quickly, naive enough to trust easily, and weak enough to break under pressure. You were perfect, middle-class background, no connections, no resources, a girl who'd be grateful for the opportunity and easy to dismiss when the time came. But I got pregnant. Yes, that was unfortunate. Pregnancy complicates things. It gives you leverage, rights. So I had to adjust the timeline. The plan was simple: make your life so unbearable that you'd leave on your own, or better yet, make you so stressed that nature would take care of the problem for me. You tried to make me miscarry. I researched the possibilities. Stress is remarkably effective and completely untraceable, but you're stronger than you look. I'll give you that. So we moved to plan B. Amber. I've been cultivating Amber for 3 years. Beautiful, willing, controllable. Everything a Blackwell wife should be. I've been paying her to be ready, paying her to seduce Nathan, paying her to be patient while you served your purpose. Nathan doesn't know, does he? Nathan knows what I allow him to know. He's weak, Sarah. Always has been. His father knew it. I know it. He needs to be guided, controlled. He thinks he's having an affair because he's unhappy. He doesn't realize I arranged every meeting, every interaction. I gave him permission to stray by making his home life intolerable. You orchestrated everything. I've been doing this for 35 years. Do you think I married Richard Blackwell because I loved him? Please, I married him because he was wealthy and old. I gave him a son. I played the perfect wife. And when he died, I made sure his will was written in a way that allowed me to maintain control. Nathan was supposed to marry someone I chose, have children I could mold, and run the company under my guidance. You were never part of the plan. What about the other women? The 5 before me? Victoria laughed. You found those? Clever girl. Yes, there were others. Trial runs, you might say. Some broke quickly. Some needed more persuasion. One of them threatened to expose me. She learned that threats are unwise. What did you do to her? What needed to be done? She signed a very generous non-disclosure agreement and relocated to Europe permanently. People disappear all the time, Sarah, especially people without power or connections. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. You have 2 choices. Sign the papers, take the money, and disappear quietly, or fight me and lose everything. Your child, your dignity, possibly your freedom. I can make you look unstable, Sarah. I can make you look dangerous. I have 5 law firms on retainer. I have judges at country clubs. I have more power than you can possibly imagine. You're just a girl from Boston who thought she could marry up. You can't win. What if I have evidence? Evidence of what? Anything you took from my study would be inadmissible. Anything you recorded without my knowledge would be illegal. You're not as clever as you think you are. So you're not worried? Worried? No. Bored. This conversation is over. You have 24 hours to decide. Take the money or I'll destroy you so thoroughly you'll wish you had. I left Victoria's study with 42 minutes of detailed confession. Maggie nearly cried when I played it for her. This is it. This is everything. We've got her. What happens now? Now we go to war and we win. I woke up feeling triumphant for the first time in months. I had the recording, I had the documents, I had testimony from Jessica. I was going to file for divorce, submit the evidence, and watch Victoria's empire crumble. I got dressed, packed a small bag with essentials, and prepared to leave the estate. Then Nathan walked in with his lawyer. Sarah, sit down. What's going on? He slid papers across the table. I'm filing for divorce. Today. My heart stopped. What? My mother told me about your conversation last night, how you're planning to fight for sole custody, how you're threatening to take me for everything I'm worth. I'm not letting that happen. Nathan, your mother is manipulating. Enough! I'm done being played. The papers are filed. Court date is set for 2 weeks from today. You'll get nothing. The prenup is clear. His lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Hendricks, spoke up. Mrs. Blackwell, I'd advise you to retain counsel immediately. The prenuptial agreement you signed is ironclad. You will not receive any marital assets, and custody will be determined after paternity is established via court-ordered DNA testing. Paternity? You're questioning if the baby is yours? Nathan wouldn't meet my eyes. Your mother suggested you question your own child? We'll know in 2 weeks, Patricia said coldly. I'd advise you to prepare yourself for that reality. They left. I called Maggie immediately. Nathan just filed first. What does this mean? It means he controls the narrative, and it means any evidence you present will look retaliatory. Sarah, we need to be very careful here. I have Victoria's confession. The recording was obtained through coercion. You lured her into that conversation specifically to get her to incriminate herself. A good lawyer will argue entrapment. It might not be admissible. What about the documents from her safe? Illegally obtained. You broke into her office, broke into her safe, photographed private documents without permission. A judge could throw it all out. So all of this was for nothing? Not nothing, but we need to find another way to enter this evidence. A legal way. I hung up, feeling the walls closing in. Victoria had let me find everything. She'd known I'd break into her safe. She'd known I'd record her. She'd wanted me to have evidence I couldn't use. The trap wasn't the confession. The trap was making me think I'd won. Maggie came to a coffee shop near the hospital. I didn't want to meet at the estate anymore. We have 2 weeks until court. Here's what we know. Victoria's confession is problematic, but not impossible. If we can establish a pattern of abuse and coercion, we can argue that recording her was self-defense, not entrapment. We need witnesses. Jessica will testify. Victoria will destroy her. She needs to be willing to lose everything. I called Jessica. Are you willing to testify in court? Under oath? Victoria will come after you. There was a long silence. I've already been fired, Jessica said quietly. This morning, Victoria called me at 6 in the morning, said my services were no longer needed. She knows I helped you. Jessica, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I've been documenting everything she's done for 8 years. I have a folder 3 inches thick. Emails, memos, recorded conversations with other employees. She's violated so many labor laws, harassed so many people. I've been building a case for years. If she wants to come after me, I'll bury her. Tell your lawyer I'll testify. We needed more. One assistant wouldn't be enough. What about household staff? Maggie asked. Someone who witnessed the daily abuse. I thought about Diane, the housekeeper who'd sometimes look at me with sympathy, who'd once left a glass of water and crackers outside my door when I was too sick to come down for breakfast. I reached out to her through a carefully worded text. She agreed to meet, in person, away from the estate. I've worked for the Blackwell family for 20 years, Diane told us. I've seen 5 wives come and go. You're the longest any of them has lasted. And I've seen enough. Will you testify? Yes, but I need protection. Victoria Blackwell has a long memory. Maggie nodded. We'll get you a lawyer, pro bono, and if she retaliates, we add it to the list of charges. We had 2 witnesses. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The stress of the impending divorce was taking its toll. I was 34 weeks pregnant now. The baby was measuring large. I was exhausted, swollen, and my blood pressure was climbing. Dr. Klein was concerned. Sarah, you're showing signs of preeclampsia. Your blood pressure is 160/100. That's dangerous for you and the baby. I have court in 1 week. I can't stop now. If you don't reduce your stress level, you could have a stroke, or the baby could be in distress. This isn't optional anymore. You need bed rest, complete bed rest. I can rest after. There might not be an after if you keep going like this. Sarah, I'm not exaggerating. You could die. I sat in the hospital parking lot, hands on my belly, feeling the baby kick. If I kept fighting, I could win the case but lose the baby. or lose my own life. If I gave up, I'd lose everything anyway. What kind of choice was that? I called my father. Papa, I don't know what to do. Come home, Sarah. Come home to Boston. Let me take care of you. If I leave now, they'll say I abandoned the marriage. I'll lose custody. Then you stay. But you rest, and you let your lawyer do the fighting. It's not enough. I need to be there. I need to testify. And if you die doing it, what good are you to that baby then? Against Dr. Klein's orders, I did one last thing. Jessica had mentioned that Amber and Victoria met regularly at a hotel in Manhattan to coordinate strategy. They had a standing lunch reservation every Friday. This Friday, I followed them. I sat 3 tables away, hidden behind a newspaper, my phone recording. I watched Victoria slide an envelope across the table to Amber. The final payment, Victoria said. After the divorce is finalized and you marry Nathan, you'll receive the rest. When? And when? Amber asked. 6 months, long enough for the dust to settle. Then a quiet wedding, a quick pregnancy, and we reset everything. The will requires a legitimate heir. It doesn't specify which wife. What about Sarah? What about her? Once the court terminates her rights, she'll disappear. I'll make sure of it. I was photographing them with my phone when the cramping started. Sharp, sudden, low in my abdomen. I gasped, clutched the table. The couple next to me noticed. Ma'am, are you okay? I need another cramp. Worse. I looked down, wetness spreading across my dress. Oh my God, the woman said, your water just broke. Someone call 911. I don't remember much of the ambulance ride. Just pain, just fear. At the hospital, they rushed me into labor and delivery. It's too early, I kept saying. It's too early. I'm only 34 weeks. Dr. Klein was there. Sarah, we need to stop this labor. The baby's not ready. They gave me medication, magnesium sulfate to stop contractions, steroids to help the baby's lungs develop in case they couldn't stop it. I lay in that hospital bed, monitors beeping, feeling the baby kick weakly, and realized I'd pushed too far. If I keep fighting, I asked Dr. Klein, what are the odds the baby survives? If you keep fighting at this stress level, 50-50, maybe less. And if I give up, sign the papers, walk away, then your blood pressure stabilizes, the baby stays in for another month, and you both survive. Nathan came to the hospital. He stood in the doorway, wouldn't come closer. My lawyer says you're trying to submit illegally obtained evidence, that you're planning to make this ugly. Your mother is a monster, Nathan. My mother is protecting me and our child. Your child? 3 days ago, you questioned if it was even yours. He had the decency to look ashamed. That was, my mother suggested we should be sure. Of course she did. Nathan, can't you see what she's doing? She's controlled you your entire life. She chose Amber for you. She's been paying Amber to seduce you. She orchestrated everything. You're sounding paranoid, Sarah. Maybe the pregnancy hormones. Get out! Sarah, get out! He left. I lay there alone, monitors beeping, and felt the baby kick. Strong this time, fighter. We're not giving up, I whispered. We're going to win, I promise. 3 days before court, I got a call from Maggie. We have a problem. Jessica recanted her testimony. What? She called this morning, said she made everything up, said she was angry about being fired and wanted to hurt Victoria. She's withdrawing everything. No, she wouldn't. She already signed an affidavit. It's over, Sarah. I called Jessica immediately. It went straight to voicemail. I drove to her apartment. The landlord met me at the door. Jessica Torres? She moved out 2 days ago. Paid me 6 months' rent in cash and left. Didn't say where she was going. My hands were shaking. Did you see who helped her move? Yeah, some moving company. Had Blackwell Properties on the side of the truck. Victoria got to her, paid her off, or threatened her, or both. I went back to my car and just sat there trying to process. The recording was inadmissible without a witness to corroborate the pattern of abuse. The documents were illegally obtained. Jessica was gone. All I had left was Diane, one housekeeper against an army of lawyers. That night, I tried to access the USB drive Jessica had given me, the one with all the security footage, emails, and documents. I plugged it into my laptop. Error. Files corrupted or missing. I tried again. Same error. I downloaded a data recovery program. Ran it overnight. The files were completely wiped. Professionally wiped. Like they'd never existed. Jessica hadn't just recanted. She'd destroyed the evidence. Or someone had. Court was in 2 days. I had an inadmissible recording, illegally obtained documents that would be thrown out, no corroborating witnesses except one housekeeper, a husband who thought I was crazy, a prenup that said I got nothing, and a mother-in-law with unlimited resources and no conscience. I sat on the bathroom floor of my hospital room. They'd kept me from monitoring and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. Then I called my father. Papa, I can't win this. I tried everything. I have nothing. Then come home, baby girl, come home. If I run, they'll say I abandoned the marriage. I'll lose custody. Victoria will raise my baby. Then what do you do? I sat there in the dark, feeling the baby kick, and suddenly it hit me. I've been fighting this wrong. I've been trying to prove Victoria is evil with evidence she can discredit. But I don't need evidence. What do you need? I need her to confess in court, under oath, where she can't take it back. How are you going to do that? I'm going to give her exactly what she wants. Me, broken and defeated, and then I'm going to make her so confident she'll brag. On the record, in front of a judge. I called Maggie at midnight. I know what we're going to do, and you're going to think I'm insane. Try me. We're going to put Victoria on the stand, and we're going to make her confess publicly under oath. Sarah, you can't compel her to testify. She's not a party to the divorce. No, but she's a material witness. She was present for key conversations. She has relevant knowledge about Nathan's state of mind. We can subpoena her. She'll plead the fifth. Not if she thinks she's winning. Not if she thinks I'm beaten. Maggie, Victoria's weakness is her ego. She wants to tell me how smart she is. She wants to gloat. We just need to give her the stage. This is insane. This is all we have left. Maggie was quiet for a long time. Okay, but if this backfires, you lose everything. I've already lost everything, I said. Now I'm just playing for revenge. I checked myself out of the hospital against medical advice. Mrs. Blackwell, you're 35 weeks pregnant with preeclampsia. You need to be monitored. I'll be fine. I just need 2 more days. Dr. Klein looked at me like I was insane. Maybe I was. Maggie and I spent 12 hours preparing for the cross-examination. Victoria is smart. She'll see the trap. You need to make her think she's too smart to fall for it. We practiced every question, every follow-up, every possible response. The key is getting her to underestimate you one last time. Make her think you're broken. Make her think she's already won. Then, when she's comfortable, go for the throat. I needed Nathan and Victoria to believe I'd given up. I texted Nathan, "You win. I just want this to be over. Can we settle outside of court?" He responded immediately, "Come to the estate tomorrow. We'll talk." I went to the estate the day before court. I looked terrible on purpose. No makeup, swollen eyes, rumpled clothes. The picture of defeat. Victoria and Nathan were waiting in the study with their lawyers. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice breaking. "Practice for hours. I can't fight you. I don't have the money. I don't have the energy. I just want this to be over." Victoria smiled. She actually smiled. "Finally, some sense. I'll sign whatever you want. I just want to see my baby. Please, some kind of visitation." Nathan looked uncomfortable. "Sarah, we'll be reasonable," Victoria said smoothly. "Supervised visitation. Once a month, under our terms." Once a month? I let tears fall. Not hard, they were real. "I'm her mother." "You'll be lucky to get that," Victoria's lawyer interjected, "given your mental state." My mental state? Victoria stood, walked to me, put her hand on my shoulder like a caring mother-in-law. "Sarah, dear, you've been under tremendous stress. The pregnancy, the move, adjusting to our family, it's taken a toll. But after the divorce, you'll be free to get the help you need. Therapy, rest, maybe some time in a facility." A facility? Just for a few months, to stabilize. Then we can discuss more permanent custody arrangements. She was going to have me institutionalized, like Diana, wife number 4. I understand, I said quietly. Meeting over. Tomorrow in court, just formalize the papers. Victoria patted my shoulder. See, this is so much better for everyone. I left the estate. In the car, I called Maggie. She took the bait. She thinks I'm done. Tomorrow we destroy her. I arrived at the courthouse at 8 in the morning. The building was swarming with media. Someone had leaked that the Blackwell divorce was happening today. I was 36 weeks pregnant now. Every movement was exhausting. But I was here. Nathan arrived with an army, 5 lawyers, Victoria, Amber, there to support him apparently, and a PR team. I had Maggie and Diane sitting nervously in the back. Federal courthouse, Judge Catherine Reynolds presiding. Judge Reynolds had a reputation. Former prosecutor, no tolerance for games, hated liars. This is a dissolution of marriage hearing, she began. We're here to settle the terms of divorce between Jonathan Blackwell and Sarah Mitchell Blackwell. Let's proceed. Nathan's lead lawyer, Patricia Hendricks, stood up. Your Honor, this is straightforward. The parties signed a prenuptial agreement. Mrs. Sarah Mitchell Blackwell signed willingly, with full legal counsel, understanding that in the event of divorce, she would not be entitled to marital assets. The marriage lasted only 18 months. She contributed nothing to family assets. Mr. Blackwell simply wishes to formalize the dissolution and establish paternity testing for the unborn child, after which custody arrangements can be determined. Judge Reynolds turned to Maggie. Response? We're not contesting the prenup, Your Honor. Nathan and Victoria visibly relaxed. They thought they'd won. Maggie continued, however, we are filing a motion to invalidate the prenup based on fraud, coercion, and conspiracy to commit fraud. We're also requesting that this hearing be expanded to include criminal referrals for conspiracy, extortion, and witness tampering. The courtroom erupted. Judge Reynolds slammed her gavel. Order, Ms. Harper, those are serious allegations. We have evidence, Your Honor. I object. Patricia Hendricks jumped up. This is a divorce hearing, not a criminal trial. If criminal behavior is relevant to the divorce, I'll hear it, Judge Reynolds said firmly. Ms. Harper, call your first witness. Maggie called Diane first. Diane testified to 20 years of watching Victoria systematically destroy Nathan's wives. The verbal abuse, the isolation, the psychological torture. Patricia cross-examined her brutally. You're a disgruntled employee, aren't you, Ms. Diane? You were recently terminated. I quit 3 days ago because I couldn't watch her do it anymore. Isn't it true that you've been paid by Mrs. Sarah Mitchell Blackwell to testify today? I'm testifying for free. This is about conscience. It was good testimony, but not enough. Then Maggie did something unexpected. Your Honor, I'd like to call Victoria Ann Blackwell to the stand. The courtroom went silent. Patricia jumped up. Objection. Mrs. Victoria Blackwell is not a party to this divorce. She's a material witness. She has relevant knowledge about the circumstances of the marriage and the prenuptial agreement. Judge Reynolds considered. I'll allow it. Mrs. Blackwell, please take the stand. Victoria stood completely composed. She was confident. She thought she was untouchable. Maggie started softly. Mrs. Blackwell, how long have you known Amber Sinclair? Amber, about 3 years. She's a family friend. A family friend, and how often do you see her? Occasionally, social events. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit A bank records showing 18 monthly payments of $15,000 from Victoria Blackwell to Amber Sinclair, totaling $270,000. Patricia objected. Where did you obtain these records? Subpoenaed from the bank, completely legal. Judge Reynolds examined the records. These appear legitimate. Mrs. Blackwell, why were you paying Ms. Sinclair $15,000 per month? Victoria didn't miss a beat. Amber is a model. I was sponsoring her career, supporting young talent. For 18 months, that's very generous. I believe in investing in promising young people. Maggie pulled out another document. Exhibit B, a contract signed by you and Ms. Sinclair, dated March 15, 2024, 2 months before Sarah married your son. Would you like to read what it says? Victoria's face finally showed a crack. Where did you get that? Is this your signature? That was a private agreement. Please read section 2, paragraph 3. Victoria wouldn't. Maggie read it aloud. Party B agrees to maintain a relationship with Jonathan Richard Blackwell during his marriage to Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell to facilitate marital discord and expedite divorce proceedings. The courtroom exploded. Nathan stood up. Mother, what is this? Judge Reynolds slammed her gavel. Mr. Blackwell, sit down. Mrs. Victoria Blackwell, did you pay Ms. Sinclair to seduce your son while he was married? That document is taken out of context. Yes or no? Victoria's jaw tightened. I was protecting my son from an unsuitable marriage. By arranging an affair? She was going to take him for everything. I needed leverage for the divorce. So you admit you orchestrated the affair to create grounds for divorce. Victoria realized her mistake. I want a lawyer. Too late. You're under oath. Let me ask you something else. Did you know about the affair before Mrs. Sarah did? Silence. Mrs. Blackwell, answer the question. Yes, I arranged it. Maggie pressed harder. Isn't it true that you've done this before? That there were 5 other women before Sarah? I don't know what you're talking about. Exhibit C photos of 5 women, all former girlfriends or wives of your son, all of whom left the family under mysterious circumstances. Patricia stood up. Your Honor, this is speculation. It's a pattern. Your Honor, Victoria Blackwell has systematically destroyed every woman her son has become involved with. She controls him through fear and manipulation. She controls the family estate, and she arranged for Sarah to be removed so she could install a woman she controls. Amber Sinclair as the next Mrs. Blackwell. Victoria snapped. So what if I did? That girl was nobody. A gallery manager from Boston with no connections, no breeding, no class. She trapped my son with a pregnancy and thought she could waltz into our family and take everything. I did what any mother would do. I protected what was mine. The courtroom was dead silent. Judge Reynolds leaned forward. What was yours? My husband's estate, my legacy, my control. That's what she was trying to take. And the baby? Victoria's face twisted. The baby complicated things. The will requires a legitimate heir. But once it's born, custody can be renegotiated. You plan to take Sarah's baby? I plan to raise that child properly. With the right mother. Amber would have... She stopped, realized what she'd said. Nathan was standing again, his face white. You were going to take my child and give it to Amber to raise. Nathan, sit down. You've been controlling me my entire life. Every woman I've dated, every decision I've made. You arranged for Amber to seduce me while I was married. I was trying to save you from making a mistake. The mistake was listening to you. Nathan turned to the judge. Your Honor, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know about any of this. Judge Reynolds looked at him coolly. Ignorance isn't innocence, Mr. Blackwell. But we'll address that later. She turned back to Victoria. Mrs. Blackwell, based on your testimony today, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of conspiracy, fraud, witness tampering, and extortion. Bailiff, please take Mrs. Blackwell into custody. You can't arrest me. I haven't been charged with anything. You confessed to multiple crimes under oath. Bailiff. 2 officers approached Victoria. She looked at Nathan desperately. Nathan, tell them I was protecting you. Nathan looked at his mother, really looked at her, for the first time in his life. You destroyed my marriage. You paid someone to seduce me. You tried to steal my child. You're not protecting me, Mother. You're destroying me. He turned away. As they handcuffed Victoria, she looked at me across the courtroom. You've won nothing, she hissed. You'll always be nobody. I stood up, all 36 weeks pregnant, looked her in the eye and said, I'm not nobody. I'm the woman who took you down. They let her out. Judge Reynolds turned to the remaining parties. This hearing is continued pending criminal investigation. However, I'm making immediate preliminary rulings. The prenuptial agreement is invalidated due to fraud. Mrs. Sarah Mitchell Blackwell is granted temporary sole custody of the unborn child. Mr. Blackwell, you're ordered to have no contact with your mother pending trial. Miss Amber Sinclair, there's a warrant for your arrest for conspiracy and fraud. Bailiff, Amber tried to run. She didn't make it to the door. Judge Reynolds looked at me. "Mrs. Mitchell Blackwell, are you all right?" I felt a rush of wetness. Looked down. My water had broken. "Get a medic," someone shouted. The last thing I saw before the paramedics arrived was Nathan standing in the middle of the courtroom, surrounded by lawyers, completely alone. They rushed me to Mount Sinai again. This time, there was no stopping labor. 6 hours later, at 11:47 at night, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. I named her Emma Grace Mitchell. Not Blackwell. Mitchell. Nathan tried to visit. I refused. He sent a letter. I didn't read it. My father flew in from Boston, held his granddaughter and cried, "You did it, baby girl. You won." "I just survived, Papa. Victoria's the one who lost." 3 days later, the district attorney filed criminal charges: conspiracy, fraud, witness tampering, extortion, and attempted coercion. Victoria was denied bail. Flight risk. Amber pleaded guilty in exchange for testimony against Victoria. She was sentenced to 18 months and deported afterward. Nathan disappeared from public life, lost his position as CEO, entered therapy. His lawyers reached out about visitation rights. I said no. Emma didn't need a father who'd question her paternity, who'd let his mother orchestrate his life, who'd been too weak to protect us. She had me and my father, and that was enough. 6 months later, I moved back to Boston, got a small townhouse in the North End, 3 blocks from my old apartment. The divorce settlement was finalized, $20 million. Not because of the prenup, but because Judge Reynolds ordered it as restitution for fraud and emotional damages. Victoria was convicted on all counts, sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. She appealed, lost. The last I heard, she was in a minimum security facility in Connecticut, still trying to control things from behind bars. Nathan sent monthly letters. I never opened them. My lawyer handled all legal communications. He wanted visitation, wanted to meet Emma, wanted to apologize. My lawyer's response was always the same. "Mrs. Mitchell is not interested in contact at this time. People think winning means everything gets better. It doesn't. I have panic attacks when the doorbell rings unexpectedly. I check the locks 3 times before bed. I can't trust people easily anymore. Emma cries when men try to hold her. Dr. Klein says she absorbed my stress in the womb. It'll take time for her to feel safe with male figures. Dating? Impossible. How do you explain to someone that you were tortured by a billionaire family for 18 months? My old friends from Boston don't know how to talk to me. I'm that woman from the news, the one who took down Victoria Blackwell. I'm famous in a way I never wanted to be, but I also started something good. The Mitchell Foundation for Survivors of Family Abuse. We help women document abuse, provide legal resources, safe housing, therapy, everything I wished I'd had. Every woman who walks through our doors, I see myself a year ago, scared, isolated, being told she's crazy. We help them understand. You're not crazy, you're paying attention. I wrote a book, The Long Game: How I Took Down a Billionaire Family. It hit the New York Times bestseller list in its first week. I don't need the money, I have the settlement, but every dollar goes to the foundation. Women write me letters, hundreds of them, thousands. I'm living your story right now. Thank you for showing me I can fight. I thought I was alone. Your book saved my life. Because of you, I documented everything. I won my case. Thank you. People always ask, was it worth it? Worth the panic attacks? Worth the sleepless nights? Worth the loss of innocence? I look at Emma, 6 months old now, laughing at dust motes in the sunlight, completely unaware that her existence almost destroyed me, and I know the answer. Yes, because she's free. She'll never grow up in that house under Victoria's control, learning that cruelty is love. She'll grow up knowing her mother fought for her, protected her, chose her. That's worth everything. It's been exactly 1 year since I walked into that courtroom, pregnant, terrified, holding evidence I didn't think would be enough. I'm sitting in a park in Boston watching Emma toddle around on chubby legs. She's walking now, into everything, fearless. A young woman approaches, hesitant. "Excuse me, are you Sarah Mitchell?" I tense, always the first response now. Yes, I'm sorry to bother you. I read your book, and I needed to thank you. She sits down on the bench beside me, uninvited but not threatening. My husband's family wants me to sign a post-nuptial agreement. They say it's standard, but something feels wrong, the way they talk to me, the way they make me feel small. I look at her, see myself 2 years ago. Trust that feeling. But they have lawyers, money. I'm just nobody. I've finished for her. She tears in her eyes. That's what they want you to think, that you're powerless. But you're not. You have something they can never take away from you. What? The truth and the ability to document it. I pull out my phone, open my contacts, hand it to her. That's my lawyer. Call her. Tell her I sent you. She'll help you figure out if this agreement is legitimate or a trap. And if it's a trap, what do? You document everything. You trust yourself. You play the long game. And when the moment is right, you show the world who they really are. She takes the number, hands back my phone. Did you ever forgive him? Your ex-husband? I think about Nathan, about the letters I never read, about the life we could have had if his mother hadn't been a monster, if he'd been stronger. I forgave him for being weak. I forgave him for being manipulated. But I'll never forget, and I'll never let him back in. Some people deserve second chances. Some people just deserve consequences. And his mother? I smile, but it's not a happy smile. She got exactly what she deserved. 12 years in prison, her reputation destroyed, her family broken, her empire crumbled. She spent 60 years building power, and I took it down in one courtroom confession. Do you ever wonder what she's thinking? In prison? Every day, I admit. I hope she's thinking about how the girl she underestimated, the nobody from Boston, destroyed her completely. I hope she replays that courtroom scene every night. I hope it eats her alive. The woman stands up. Thank you, really, thank you. As she walks away, Emma toddles over, falls into my lap with a giggle. Mama, her first word, just last week, Mama. I hold her close, breathe in the smell of baby shampoo and innocence. People ask me if it was worth it, if destroying Victoria Blackwell was worth what it cost me. I lost my ability to trust easily. I lost 2 years of peace. I lost the fairy tale I thought I was living. I gained enemies I didn't know existed. I gained fame I never wanted. But I also gained something Victoria Blackwell spent 60 years searching for and never found. Freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from needing approval. Freedom from playing small. Victoria controlled everyone around her through money, manipulation, and fear. She spent her whole life clawing for power over other people. I spent 2 years learning I already had power over myself. And that was the one thing she could never take. So yes, it was worth it. Every single second, every panic attack, every sleepless night, every moment of terror. Because my daughter will grow up free. She'll never wonder if she's enough. She'll never let anyone make her feel small. She'll know her mother fought for her. And if that's not worth everything, I don't know what is. If you're in your own war right now, fighting a Victoria of your own, remember this. Document everything. Every text, every conversation, every moment that feels wrong. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Play the long game. Don't react. Plan, wait. Strike when you have everything you need. And remember, the truth presented at the right moment is the most powerful weapon in the world. Not revenge, truth. Because revenge is about hurting them. Truth is about freeing yourself. Victoria wanted to break me. She did break me, but breaking isn't the same as destroying. Sometimes you have to break before you can rebuild yourself stronger. I'm Sarah Mitchell, not Sarah Blackwell. Never again Blackwell. I'm a mother, a survivor, a fighter, and this was my war. What's yours?